We have one College Point. We have one Flushing. We have one Bayside. We have one Queens. We have one New York City. We have one nation. We are Americans. We are human beings. We have the rights not to be attacked. We have the rights not to be killed. 8 victims. They were COVID-19 survivors like us. But they lost their lives under the hate crime, period. It's a definite hate crime. We are here not only to stop Asian hate crimes, we are here to stop domestic terrorism. Last but not the least, I have a dream. In one day, you will not bothering call me Asian American. You will not call African American. You don't need to call Hispanic American. Of course you don't need to call European American. Because you just call me American. We are Americans. Thank you.
So there should be no difference than anybody else in this planet or in this country, however you call. We are one human as the United States American citizens. So there should be no racism. There should be no issues whatsoever just because of you are from somewhere else. No, that doesn't matter. So that's why we are as one human race. So that's why human race matters, just like a Black Lives Matter, just like Asian life matters. So human race matters. So that's why I'm here for unity. I'm here for solidarity. Anything I have to do, or with my fellow friends as Asians, we have to be united to stop this Asian hate. So I'm here to support this hate crime against it. So it should not be repeated anymore. They even started attacking the Uber drivers. I have seen one Nepali guy, he just got attacked a week ago, and he was like a helpless. So those crimes have been increasing dramatically. So it should stop. So let's end the racist violence. Let's end the hate crime. So we are united. We are not divided. Let's support as one human being. Thank you.
You know, I'm so glad that somebody gave me this sign. Asians are Americans too. And as Audrey said, first generation. My family is only second generation. We're all immigrants, except for Native Americans. We all came here with the same desire for a good life, that our children would have a good education, that we'd all have a good job, that we would all live in safety. What's happening to the Asian American community is anti-American.
Right.
This cannot go on. We cannot let it happen. And the fact that you're all here today sends a message to those who would issue hate that we're not going to stand for it. We have to work together. Whenever these incidents happen, we have to stand together. And if it takes 1,000, 10,000 rallies, we will do it. And you said it best. At the dinner table, when those jokes are made against any community, that has to stop. We have to start with our children and educate them that racism, and racism does exist, has to end. It has no place in the great American society. We're all in this together. And if anybody has done Ancestry.com, you all know we're all together. We're all part of the greater world community. We need to stick together and end this. Enough is enough. Hate has to end. Let's end it now. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hate and racism is a virus. And it's a virus that can only be overcome when the community comes together as one to say loudly and clearly that hate really has no place in our community. And you know what? Right here, this is what community looks like. Thank you very much.
To ensure that community organizations have the resources to serve the Asian American community as well as every other community. It stops when authorities understand the difficulty that we've been through and not say or make ridiculous decisions such as what we saw in Atlanta when the sheriff gets up and somehow excuses this guy who just shot 8 people to death by saying that, oh, he had a bad day. Disgusting, you're absolutely right. Or even the FBI, which to this day still refuses to call that killing spree a hate crime. The guy drove his car to an Asian business, went inside, shot Asians dead, went to a second Asian business to look for more Asian workers to shoot dead, which he did, and then yet a third Asian business to shoot more Asians dead. And that's not a hate crime. I don't know what is in their head. I say that because as bad as killing 8 people was, and it truly is horrific, what the FBI and the Sheriff's Office statements mean is that it almost puts a bullseye on Asian Americans all across the country, because you know what? It's okay to kill or attack Asian Americans because you're not going to face the full consequences. That's the kind of the terrible message that those authorities down in Atlanta have rendered. So we're here to say no more hate. Enough. And we're here to say that those in authority, they need to also step up to protect everybody in this community. As bad as things have been, I am really heartened to see the rallies that have taken place. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of rallies I've been to in the last 2 weeks. But the fact that these rallies have taken place, we had one in Bay Terrace just the other day. We've had many others in Queens. The borough president is having his own vigil tomorrow night. These are rallies that are being organized, many of them organized by people who don't happen to be Asian. Jennifer actually is Asian. Okay. Actually is Asian. But the reality is that there are people who are rising up against anti-Asian hate, against all hate, because it's got to stop. We're all neighbors. We've been neighbors for a long, long time. Everybody's chipping in to help make the community a much stronger place.
I just want to pick up a little bit on what Queensborough President Donovan Riches said, and he did when he's talking about our kids, because that is who we do this for. And it's up to us to teach the right thing. It's up to us not to make those stereotypical jokes at our dinner table because we think they're funny. And say, oh no, I didn't mean anything by it, then don't say it. So it is up to us. It's up to us to let our kids see and learn the right way to behave.
That's right.
That's right.
So, my name is Audrey, and I'm speaking to you as a 16-year-old, first-generation Chinese American. The last year of my life has been heavy with fear and grief as I'm weighed down by the violence against my community. In February, I heard an Asian woman wearing a face mask was assaulted and called diseased in a subway station. And then in July, I learned of 2 men in Brooklyn setting an 89-year-old Asian woman on fire. She looked like my grandmother. I felt terrified and angry and distressed, but mostly, I felt invisible. My life has been marked by pressures to keep my voice muted and my identity erased. And the way these incidents came and went without anything more than a week on a few Instagram stories reaffirmed what I already knew. No one was listening to us. Mulling over these stories, I began to understand that we haven't been able to speak out because we have internalized our invisibility and racism. And that is what has made our community vulnerable. Our invisibility has allowed external forces to shape our stories with stereotypes and lies, painting us as a monolith of model minorities. But when people speak up and show our collective outrage, we disrupt that. Using our voices is the best way to fight against the bigotry and violence that plagues our country. We must be able to show up as our authentic selves and speak our truth. I knew that the place to start having this conversation was where I spend most of my waking hours, school. Messaging some faculty, I began organizing a school-wide discussion to have an open, safe space for our Asian American community members and allies to grieve together, to share their frustrations, and to show that we will not be silent anymore. As I listened to my peers vent their anger and tell their stories, I was overwhelmed by the strength and resilience shown. I am lucky to be part of the most progressive and diverse generation to date, and it is vital that our voices are heard and amplified as we spearhead the change that we want to see. We must continue to empower the youth's voice to speak out against injustices. There have been over 3,800 hate crimes against Asians in the US in the last year alone, and those are only the reported ones. Though Trump's hateful rhetoric and the spread of terms like Chinese virus and Kung Flu have fueled this violence and prejudice, it is crucial to realize that it isn't anything new. It simply added fuel to a growing fire. White supremacy and anti-Asian sentiment have been ingrained into the foundation of our country, and we must address it as such to call for authentic racial justice. However, it is impossible to address and challenge systemic racism without discussing the role of misogyny, xenophobia, and imperialism. Asian American women are 2.3 times more likely to be harassed than their male counterparts, and made up 68% of the reported hate crimes last year. Walking down the streets of Flushing, I was spat on by a man pulling his eyes. I exist in constant fear of worse happening to me or my mother every single day. Every hate crime has been marked by a demand to go back to China, a representation of the ever-increasing anti-immigrant sentiment. US military involvement in East Asia dehumanized Asian women and emasculized Asian men. It is essential to dismantle all of these intersecting layers of oppression to liberate our community. Yet we cannot ignore that our liberation is inextricable from the liberation of all POC. True equity work does not exist in a black and white binary, and we must work towards the collective liberation of all Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian people, and all racially marginalized people. Using our oppression and suffering to further the anti-Blackness that already permeates our community will only hinder us from achieving racial justice. If we continue to contribute to the divisiveness that mainstream media and white supremacy have forced on us, then we've already lost our fight. Unity is what will ultimately catalyze change and bring us towards liberation. My parents immigrated to the United States 20 years ago. They have done nothing but work hard to provide for my brother and sister and I, to fulfill the illusion of the American dream. And I cannot be silent anymore. We need to speak out to protect our families, our parents, our elders, so we no longer have to live in fear. We are the change that we have been waiting for, and our call